Today, I'd like to share with you on the podcast, as we come up on our first year anniversary, some of the things that we've learned together, what we've learned from our guests, what we've learned from you, the listeners, and how our experiences have come together. We've had guests that have spanned the waterfront when it comes to backgrounds. Leaders from private equity, community-based services, performance coaching, the arts, life sciences, cosmetics, staffing companies. Every imaginable industry, business has been represented over the last year. And those guests have had a major impact on me. Areas that I thought were platforms that I had based a lot of decisions around, I began to question, as I know some of you have. When I think about the advice from Michelle Sartain, the head of United States sales for Marsh, and how she talked about not having too tight a personal strategic plan that we don't leave ourselves open for opportunities. The questions that you have sent back through social media have also made me think a great deal. Questions like, can that truly happen to me in my life? Do I have what it takes to become one of those individuals who was a guest on the Roots of Leadership? How do I deal with complacency, barriers, people who may stand in my way, the perception that maybe I'm not good enough, behavioral background, things that have impacted us unknowingly in our lives that held us back from achieving success? What does it really mean to be a servant leader? How can I impact others from the position I'm in, which may not be at the very top of an organization? These questions and more have come out over the last year. I want to take a moment to thank our staff, and specifically Karen Ojeda, my producer, for all her hard efforts, and Kim Cummings, who writes a lot of the descriptions after guests have been on the show. So I guess let's start with them. Those are individuals who weren't in the media business a year ago. They were insurance and risk professionals, and yet had to find the ability to remake themselves in a new industry. I'd ask you, as you listen to this podcast, what area can you stretch yourself into that would be new, different, and a bit uncomfortable? Because all the guests on the show who became leaders in life and business did not start out on top. I remember Jennifer Davis and Elizabeth McCourt speaking about how to define success, how both had been successful in corporate careers, yet left that to go off on their own. I think about people like Kika DeBose, the youngest female franchiser, who took $500 and built a very successful business. Barry Beck, who founded Blue Mercury, who in college had made $1 million before he graduated college in a business that was related to the cleaning services, maintenance company, and then went on to create Blue Mercury. Chris Sugden and the power of persistence from the world of private equity. And I guess one of the ones that touched my heart and is one of the top downloads of all the shows was my granddaughter Ansley, who talked on the podcast about things that she sees from a child's perspective and how we don't want to lose the inner child in all of us. Bill Guarnello from HeartShare, who spent his career in one place, just serving others who were less fortunate. Jennifer Walsh, who founded Beauty Bar and went on to become an inspirational visionary, and today stands as one of the top wellness professionals in the nation. Think for a moment about you. What is the edge of your risk? Are we going every day about our routine, looking at our devices, our phones, our iPads, and spending hours in areas that perhaps don't help us grow and just help us spend time? Where can you spend time looking for the edge? So today's podcast is just you and I looking for the edge that should be a little uncomfortable. I interviewed, and you'll hear her podcast coming up, a woman, Dr. Laura Gallagher, CEO of Gallagher Edge, who at the age of 24 was asked by NASA to come in and talk about the psychological issues of organizational leadership after the space shuttle Columbia was lost, killing all on board. At the age of 24, she was thrust to probably the edge of her risk tolerance and went on to be successful in so many systems. These people I mentioned, they're you. They weren't born with any special gift that you don't have. Steve Maneri, who played for various teams in the NFL, who was coached by some of the greats, who every day had so many people competing for his position on the football field, and what he had to do to define his edge of risk. As I listened through this past year to all my guests, interacted with you and your questions, or sometimes those of you just walked up to me and asked me something when we were together, proof that we are all an inspirational visionary. I think about Sarah Diane Post from Nebraska, a housewife who after her 5th child and weighing 200 pounds went through the transformational evolution to become an athlete, to remake herself, that although she was someone who suffered with anxiety, she was able to take control of that on her own, and now speaks to groups about transformational wellness. She's you. There are those of you listening right now that perhaps can identify with that very issue. I thought about, for myself, growing up in a blue-collar household, my father a welder, my mother a sewing machine operator, that there are a lot of times in my life when I felt it was good enough. I was at a place where I didn't have to keep being uncomfortable. I didn't have to keep looking for an edge. And as I watched life unfold, I realized how much danger I had put myself in. There was a time in business when I was asked to take over a struggling enterprise in Texas. And I remember it being so difficult when I first arrived that I began to plan my exit. That if I failed, what I would do next. And what struck me was the moment I began to think about my escape, I was probably doomed for failure. So as one of my guests said, they never worked on plan B. They only ever had plan A, because they needed to be on the edge where the greats play. Once I changed my mindset and I went on to just throw everything I had into helping the operations in Texas be successful, everything relaxed. I didn't worry about where I would go if I failed, just what I would do to succeed. And thanks to the people of Texas and my colleagues there, we turned it. I remember going to Erie, Pennsylvania. I was asked to help organically grow an organization that was struggling. Erie, Pennsylvania is a total community of maybe 300,000 to 400,000 people. a manufacturing city that had fallen on hard times. People questioned me, why would I go there? How could that possibly be good for career and growth? Yet, when I arrived there, I found amazing people, driven people, who were able to do more with less, who supported me in some new concepts and innovations, and we became successful. Wherever you are today listening to this show, there are great people around you, especially you. There is an opportunity to find charm, success, grace, innovation, transformation, evolution, wherever you stand right now. As long as you're willing to be uncomfortable. Today's episode is finding an uncomfortable spot to create even more comfort for yourself and those you care about. The Roots of Leadership, this show that I thank you so much for supporting and taking a vision we had a year ago and making it a reality. Tens of thousands of listeners. The words of encouragement that you send, the guests that you suggest. We did this together. So just like no one man or woman builds anything successful, you helped me build this show. What are you prepared to do to help yourself build the edge of greatness? You can defy the odds. You can define your way to greatness. There's a child leader in all of you that can take rejection and move on. You can go one-on-one with some of the toughest individuals that you may face. As Karen Mayo said, a guest on the show, there's a mindful science to learning. You can create transformational leadership for yourself. You can learn to be a force of one. You can live in the moment where you stand and win in that moment. You can create best practices for achieving successful outcomes in your life. I remember Chantal Ranieri, a guest on the show, one of the original guests, who after losing her father at a young age, swore that she would never again be dependent on anyone or any one thing. She went on in her life to become one of the most successful businesswomen in our industry. She took tragedy to triumph. You can too. There are many of you out there that have faced those moments, that have lost loved ones, lost a job, had to reinvent yourself, had to deal with the care of an aging parent, or yourselves as single parents taking care of children. You don't make excuses for what happened. Don't make excuses to prevent what could happen. Be that individual of great courage. Courage is founded in the uncomfortable. Inspiration is the intersection of difficult with the belief you can do it. As I end the podcast today, I'd like to end it with a new beginning. You have our commitment that we will continue to put the best guests we can out there for you to listen to and learn from. So I thank you all, to the guests that have been on the show for the last year, and to all of you listeners for making us better. Don't back up. Don't retreat. Don't surround yourself with people who tell you what you want to hear. Seek out the voices, that people that will challenge you to become a new and more courageous person in the future. We stand together on the platform of humanity. You are the difference makers. You're the news makers that need to be spoken about. Pick the right role model, and someone will pick you as theirs. This is Anthony Gruppo, and thank you for being part of my life.